Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited for today's conversation. Our guest today is John Goodhue. He's a published author and founding partner at Goodhue, Coleman, and Owens PC, where he leads their intellectual property and AI-oriented practices areas. John has a background in computer engineering, has worked on hundreds of patent applications across software, AI, fintech, and more, and recently is advancing proposals like an end-to-end AI system for patent examination. John, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Zoe. David?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Well, we'll jump right into it. We know that you're an expert, especially in the world of AI in law, but particularly IP law as well. So, what is your story? When did you first sense that AI would become a core driver of change overall in legal patent space, and how has that view evolved over time as you've been diving deeper?
Sure. Well, let's unpack that a little bit, and but before I do, I also want to make clear that any opinions I express are mine and mine alone, and not my firm's and not my clients. And any opinions I express now, they may not even be my opinions tomorrow. Things change very rapidly, so I do want to make that caveat. And when you say AI expert, I'm not even sure what that means. It means because AI is so pervasive, and often when you talk about technology terms, the terms themselves grow and change, and now AI it's not. All kinds of software incorporate features, all kinds of hardware that use software incorporate features, and so AI has become just the terminology itself has become a huge umbrella term, and so when you use the term AI expert, that certainly makes me a little bit nervous, because I'm certainly not omniscient and don't have knowledge of every area of AI. I have some broad knowledge and some specific pockets of knowledge and experience, and I'll discuss that a little bit. But I just wanted to make sure on the terminology there. And in terms of what my background is, computer engineering. Is my degree back in the mid '90s. So a lot of hardware, a lot of embedded type work. Certainly some coding too. And one of the areas that I did a fair amount of academic work in was in image processing and other types of signal processing. Which, over time that led to other things in terms of vision processing, which is a big part of many robotic-based AI systems, or vehicle guidance systems. So that's kind of one area of some knowledge. And then as a patent attorney, I've got some fantastic, super innovative clients, whether in the academic world, manufacturing world, agricultural world, that are doing super innovative things with AI, and so I get to see that firsthand and help them protect that. And so I've learned a lot about AI from them in terms of the work that I do in terms of explaining how to make and use their invention. So that's one aspect. So and I've also got other miscellaneous background things. Many years ago, and then back to the '90s, I wrote and sold a legal software. It was kind of a side business when I was going through college, and I worked at a software company, and then was involved in briefly involved in a startup that did a data storage device. So I have some experience in from that. Now, more recently, uh, uh, with machine learning becoming more important, especially with the uh, GPT and other algorithms. Um, uh, Back, I want to say it's been 4 years ago now. I, I invested some time, learned Python. That wasn't, studied and used many different languages, but hadn't really used Python. But I wanted to use that for because of its use in AI, and it makes a lot of things easy. And so then I started doing little tools and got familiar with uh, some of the early APIs, like like OpenAI's early API, and certainly I've used others as well. So writing little tools like that. Along the way, I also started using Chip AI, which is a great way to make AI assistants, and I have some of those at Goodhue.com for summarizing patents and things like that. I'm even actually super proud that I won one of the Chip AI hackathons. I got third in another one, but I won one. So, that may go on my tombstone that won a hackathon. That's for someone that doesn't get to code every day. That just makes one feel really good about themselves. So,
Yes.
so I encourage everyone to go find a hackathon and win it, and share in the joy that I'm experiencing from that. Um, Other things along the way, back in 2023. ChatGPT came out, and people started using it. So I wrote a book of large language models for lawyers. There were some aspects of that maybe were ahead of their time a bit, and people have caught up and blown by that. But I had lots of interesting ways that a lawyer might, or anybody really, might use those tools, and included a ton of great prompts. I also then, to share those prompts, I had a software service website where people could run those could run those prompts. I've taken that down now because it's outdated, because everything changes so fast. Some other things that I've been doing in terms of now it's vibe coding, and so doing a lot of that with Data Button, Replit, working on my internal workflows, and then I've got some public-facing things again at Goodhue.com. There's some AI tools there. I've written some papers along the way, or draft papers that are available on SSRN. I was looking early on. Was looking at the OpenAI's GPT 3.5 model for classifications for trademarks. So that did a couple papers on that. Some various other papers. Most recently, a vibe coding one that takes a look at some of my frustrations with what vibe coding platforms don't do, and the legal risks they create for people that vibe code things. So that's discusses that and talks about some different prompts to help mitigate that risk. So that's something that's exciting about. You mentioned in your introduction end-to-end patents, and that's interesting. That's a draft article I've got on SSRN that I truly believe that's where we're heading, to perhaps make me irrelevant, but to have a government system at the patent office where inventors can provide their invention disclosure, and it can maybe ask some questions and do some searching and prepare an application essentially in real time and with a claim scope, and the inventor can decide if they want to file it. I think there's a lot of, in preparing patent applications, patent attorneys are using it to some extent, some more than others. Patent examiners are using it to some extent, and so all this back and forth, you could have a more efficient process by having a whole end-to-end cycle. And so that's what that's about. If you want a quick overview of not everything I mentioned, but a lot of it, if you go to goodhue.com/more, it's not in the menus there, but if you go to goodhue.com/more, it includes a lot of that. So has links to the papers and some things like that. So that is a long-winded, super quick overview of some of the touch points, and you had some. Did I address your question there, David? I might have. When I was unpacking it, I might have left something in there. So what is there something more that I meant to unpack there? What?
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, it is such a comprehensive overview of everything that's so fascinating within your work, and also the broader development of AI that's changing so fast. And well, I'm thinking that specifically within the legal world, you mentioned about maybe they can implement an end-to-end system, and maybe lawyers will become irrelevant, but those are kind of down the line as well. And I know a lot of attorneys, they are exploring using AI to make their work more efficient as well. And I know you've integrated AI tools at your firm as well. I think the patent summarizer, the patent fact checker, and you mentioned the chip AI tool that's on the website. How would you say, how do you see those tools sort of either augment or replace the work of attorneys, and how did the clients respond to all those?
Yeah. Well, there's so one of the things as a patent attorney, we deal with huge amounts of information, huge amounts, and you see the same thing in certain other areas of law. But for us, there's a lot of technical information, and there's a lot of volume of the technical information, and so for us, when we're comparing an invention to what we would call prior art, which essentially is just a term of art meaning any publication or anything else that came before. Oftentimes we need to get up to speed, as quick as possible, because, we're typically charging hourly rates, and so the quicker we can review and understand what we need to review and understand. We don't necessarily need to understand every word of a 100-page document, but there's certain aspects that are relevant, and so the quicker we can find and understand that, the better. So that's just summarization is just that's just one of the very basic things that large language models can do, and it fits it fits right there. And I also think it's, there is a lot of use, as far as I can tell, there is a lot of use by attorneys of AI, and especially and especially patent attorneys. I mean, even some of the patent specific tools that I use have AI functionality built in, right? It's just like every other piece of software. It has some basic AI functionality written in. So there's all those kinds of uses, and there's more too. Now, what and you say, it's not going to replace attorneys anytime soon. I'm not for sure. I'm not for sure that it can't. Now, it requires it. I mean, it depends on context, and it depends on workflow, and but there's certainly opportunities to do that. Now, I gave a presentation at Entrefest there a few months ago, and I was explaining how we use AI in our firm, and one of the slides that I had that I think is super important too is just understanding how AI changes the nature of the work, right? So here's the pie chart of my time, right? And before AI, I spent big chunk of writing. Now, if I can use AI to write, I have a much littler chunk of writing. But before, because I wrote something, I had a small chunk for reviewing it. Well, now I've got a much bigger chunk of reviewing it. So it changes what one does, and lawyers have got in trouble where they're relying on AI to create things, and some of that can be dealt with on the front end, and in terms of how you structure things, but ultimately the attorney is responsible for the document, and they get in trouble, and it's typically, well, they didn't review it. Well, and again, that's because there's still this disconnect of the amount of review time. I mean, it may have been faster for them to have drafted it if you have to spend more time reviewing it to make sure that it's right. So that's kind of one of the disconnects that I think people lose sight of in terms of how it changes things. Another way that in the practice of law, another way that AI changes things, so or shifts what we do. There's a number of tasks that you would never think of giving to a person, to do some extra research that you would like to have, a review for this, a review for that, just because usually you're charging for your time, you're charging by the hour, and there's always
the trade-offs.
Some exceptions to this, but usually attorneys have to be practical about what they can do in an allotted amount of time, because that's all that their client is going to allot for the end task, and not free to do anything they want that might be related. But now, a lot of those things that maybe you wanted to do before, or maybe you didn't even think about doing before because it took too much time, well, now those are all possible to do, to cross-reference this, or search this, or run this analysis, run that analysis, things that so so the dynamics of a given process changes, the workflow changes, the process changes, because there's a lot of things that maybe it wasn't worth a person's time to do it, but if you can get it done without spending much human time or much cost, it makes sense to do. So that's another way where it's really changing the dynamics about how people, including lawyers, work, and so that's something else that is of interest to me, is in terms of how, me as the human, I am the limiting factor to the AI. I need to understand how I can use it the best that I can, and how it changes my thinking, and how I need to change my thinking to be the most productive, to get the most out of it. And I didn't mention in my way too long intro before, but I also wrote a book on the human algorithm that explores, through some personal experiences, explores some of those ways that you might change the way you think. And so in law, that's some of the things that I'm working on, that that I'm struggling along with, like with everybody else. But there's so much going on. Everything is moving so fast, and it's hard to find the time to keep up with the tools, let alone redoing things every time a new tool comes along. I mean, we're going to get to a point where the tools are beginning good enough that it'll obscure some of the need to do that. But I guess partly what I'm saying is not just, your workflows are going to change too. So it's not just about automating your current workflows. It's about envisioning what the workflow could be like. And that whole paper on end-to-end patents would be an example. Now that's multiple parties within that workflow are in the current workflow, whereas the parties involved in that would be different. But it would be the workflow itself can change, and that's something I think that more attention needs to be paid to. Now going back to my pie chart there, a part of that is there's certain tasks that are going to take attorneys less time. I'm billing by the hour. So is everything going to cost way less? No, that's not going to be how it plays out. The way it's going to play out is probably things cost the same, but I'm finding reasons to do more because the AI technology is allowing me to do more, and I'm spending more time on it. And and also in certain instances, if I'm not establishing the right context, I may be spending more time reviewing than writing. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about. So did you want to drill down on any of that?
There's so many.
Yes. So you have mentioned several things that would call bottlenecks in workflow. And what is the typical bottlenecks at law firms in general that can be solved leveraging AI?
Yeah. Well, in law firms, that's a broad category again, and I'm a patent lawyer, so I'm a trademark lawyer, I'm a copyright lawyer, but I'm very specific.
Yes.
And there's a lot of different types of law, and some things lend themselves more towards automation, and a lot of there's a lot of automated workflows that people have been using for a long time in certain areas of law. So So there is a lot of automation already in terms of specific bottlenecks.
I know you mentioned information earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly, collecting the. So, I mean, really, it's people that are going to be the big bottlenecks. Whether that's the client side getting the information that you need, whether that's the attorney getting them to look at what they need to look at, and I think that's a important part of AI workflows generally is it's different than our typical, okay, here's a human workflow, here's how we're going to automate it. If you're once you start using large language models to generate context or whatever, then you got to be thinking about, well, kind of what's the optimum in terms of when humans need to interject what, and how can we optimize it so it requires the least amount of human review time at the right amount of time, because if you got to redo things, or or if you're just shifting, you're great. We're doing this AI stuff, but actually we just shifted all this to require much more human review time. Then that's not ideal. So this that the notion of context engineering becomes important, and I would my metaphor with that would be, have you seen the movie Apollo 13? Okay, and so you've got Ken, he's back on Earth, and he's running through the simulator because those astronauts up there, they're hanging out in the limb using the oxygen, while Odyssey's not. But Odyssey's cold, and they're going to have to start it up, and they've only got so much power. And so Ken's down on Earth. He's working hard, working through the sequencing. When do you turn on what to draw the least amount of power? In what order? How much? And if he doesn't get it right, everything blows up. And,
yeah.
and when you're dealing with AI workflows, it's the same problem, or analogous problem, that you gotta get the right sequence, do things in the right order, so you get the best result.
And I feel like,
and so that's one of the challenges of AI workflows, whether it's in a law firm or anything else. And so figuring out what those things are important. And,
right.
and then this goes back to my computer consulting days, which I guess is something I didn't mention earlier. But when you would go into an organization and write software for them, what became readily apparent sometimes, nobody knew what the workflow was in some respects. Different people did different things, and they knew their job. And and in a law firm, it's kind of the same thing. Different people do different things, and the attorney, the senior attorney thinks they know the workflow, and they're probably completely wrong and don't really know the workflow, or they know the workflow as it existed 10 years ago when they set up a system, but they have no clue all the tweaks and changes that happened to the system in the last 10 years. So that's another problem about if you're going into an organization to automate. That's it's
cookie cutter.
You're going to have a problem because nobody actually knows what the workflow is. There may not be consensus on that, and when people know what the workflow is, they may not agree that that's the right workflow.
Right.
So those are some of the potential things that could create bottlenecks, at least from my perspective.
And I mean, a lot of software companies, they develop a product, develop a suite, or even for lawyers or for IP lawyers, and they try to sell their sort of developed package and try to have a firm to sort of fit their culture, fit their workflow into the already made package. And you brought up a good point that when you back in your days, you actually went into the firm and interviewed people and tried to understand their workflow to write a program for them to fit into their maybe help them to optimize their flow as well.
Yeah, no, and that's I've got multiple discovery calls from different startups that are working on some patent legal product because Case Text was sold for a bunch of money, and everybody wants to everybody wants to think that that's a hot area, and I'm always surprised by the disconnect there of them telling me what I need or telling me what their product does and what I would need. That's one disconnect I see. The other disconnect I see is the value that they place on their product, and if they take my hourly rate and then calculate the time that it saves, and that's the value of their product. And I look at their product and I say, well, that's going to be 20 cents in API calls. I think the value of your product is a lot closer to that 20 cents unless you have a workflow that's better than mine, but you're actually making me spend more time to use your workflow, and I have problems with it. And it's certainly it's easier, and if someone is maybe working for a company that every patent application is on, let's say it's on a refrigerator. Every patent application is on a refrigerator. They're going to have a fairly specific workflow for that, and you can do that. But for somebody like a firm like mine, where you're doing very different types of clients, very different technology areas, and where everything is truly bespoke and given some serious special thought and care, it just doesn't, at least the things that I've seen, don't work quite. And I know things can be customized or whatever, but I don't want to take a product that doesn't quite fit and then have to spend my time customizing it, and in order to get it to be the way I want. And as I said, if I have many different areas, am I going to have to create that many customizations? And it falls apart. So and I think you're seeing that. You see that with all kinds of areas. People come up with a AI product, software service product. It's a wrapper that's just making API calls, and some people have been wildly successful with that. But they're always one update, one update from OpenAI or Anthropic or Google from their product going away, unless they really understand the workflows and provide an interface, the right interface, and the right tools organized in the right way, which all that is, that's the type of thing that needs to be done to create real value. And people are figuring that. People are figuring that out, but the early attempts, people didn't have that figured out yet.
Yeah, definitely see it evolving. That now, like you said, it would be just, if you're selling a software, just a wrapper, it will be a 2 cents product. But really, the key is to understand both how the system works, how the flow works, and how the client or how the firm's flow works, and to work with them to sort of not just like tweaking a couple of switches kind of level customization, but actually building something that actually fit their culture, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it's going to be, and of course the other thing, you're going to be competing against internal tools like with the vibe coding, or even, making making well, making apps with the general purpose AI tools. It's there's a lot right now one can do on their own in terms of making their own tools, and that's going to just continue to grow in terms of what you can do and how quick you can do it, and how little work you have to do to make something useful. So lots of things to think about there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, you mentioned earlier about your pie chart about there's still going to be human input, and right now a lot of people are developing efficient flow. Human in the loop is sort of like a hot word right now,
Mm-hmm.
and how to develop a flow to do those quality checks. A lot of attorneys may argue that AI doesn't really understand the deep legal training that they've received for and practiced for so long, and hearing those horror stories of attorneys getting into trouble by utilizing something AI spit out, and it really got them to be very scared. So what are some misconceptions that people are scared from, and human in the loop might be a solution? What are some? Why are they?
Sure. Well, I mean, everybody's seen ridiculous or bad output from large language models, right? So you see things. You see Chat GPT. You see people calling it Chat stupid, and so people. You see certainly instances of hallucinating cases where lawyers have gotten in trouble, right? Large language models love to give you what you want, and so if it can't actually find it, it kind of just helps you out by either making up the case entirely, or kind of changing what it says. So you have that issue. Some of that is it's I see it more of the human algorithm issue. To adapt. There's ways to adapt, but for example, I've got a tool that I've created that uses an API that gets cases. So if I generate something from text, or even if I draft something for text and it's got a case citation, it'll pull out the case citation. It'll go and provide a link to that specific case. So then one can quickly check it. What's the next function for that? Well, that would be to provide the summary, or specifically check why it's cited and look for it. So you can solve problems with a lot of problems that people have. You can solve with the technology you already have. So how do you solve technology problems? With technology is a good place to start. And so so a lot of resistance is just people don't recognize the opportunities to address those problems, and as whether products come out to do it, or people's mindset changes, then some of that can be addressed. But it's challenging, right? I mean, it's hard to wrap your mind around. It's going to take uh, time to do that because truly, a lot of AI technologies. I mean, it really truly is a black box, and so people don't understand it, and with respect to particular inputs and the outputs you get, I mean, nobody really understands it because of the complexity involved.
Just a black box.
So yeah, so I mean, it's natural I mean, there's some rhyme and reason to it, right? In terms of in terms of knowing the underlying models and how you might better get the results that you want, but yeah, that's.
I really like that Apollo analogy. Like I'm envisioning like a commander sitting at a command desk and just like those sci-fi movies from a long time ago with the information going one after another, and the commander basically goes one by one. It's like, okay, this is good, that's not good, this is good, that's not good. I can envision sorta it's like there are millions of loops going on at once, but there are different points accumulating in the loop, and the commander or the attorney who's going to actually put their signature sort of saying there how to present information to them the most efficient way for them to most efficiently go through all the nodes that humans are in the loop. Like you said.
Of course, one of the problems with that is different humans in the loop are going to give you different results. And actually, that's one of the concerns that I have, and other people have too, for young attorneys that start out now that are relying on AI, but don't have the experience born from not relying on AI in order to evaluate what's done by AI, and so that review time, so it's not just anybody can do the review. It's got to be somebody that is capable of doing the review.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier about it's not just going to be automating existing flow, but really to adapt the workflow to work more efficiently, integrating AI. The two things that have been flowing in my mind is that one is, like you said, the attorneys, especially experienced and seasoned attorneys, need to be there to review. So they're changing their mode, their pie, like you mentioned. But then I'm thinking about legal assistants. I feel like even before AI, attorneys hire legal assistants to basically function as AI, a human AI to summarize, to brief, to research. Would you say the AI is replacing legal assistants more, or how would somebody who's a legal assistant be integrated into?
Sure. No. That's a great question. And some of the issues with AI are just the delegation issues. Are the same issues if you have, whether you're delegating to AI or you're delegating to associate or delegating to a paralegal or a law clerk. So there's always an issue with delegation, but it's not the same. It's not the same delegation issue in terms of you have different constraints on the delegation when you're delegating to AI, and you also have many things where there's a lack of constraints on what you can delegate. So it's so if you do things task oriented, it can work both ways. Now what we focus on is everybody doing more and better, using AI to accomplish that, and so whenever you're looking for automating anything, whether it's with AI or not, well, what's the what's the most repetitive task? What that's done in the same way? Okay, we're gonna use AI for that.
Yeah.
From
Now,
a firm leadership perspective, what metrics or signals are you watching to know whether, an AI augmented model or, one of your tools that you've made is working, like in terms of efficiency, client satisfaction, and like revenue returns and stuff like
sure,
that?
sure. Yeah, no, and certainly, we're a small firm, so we four attorneys, uh, uh, four staff, so we can keep easy to keep a handle on that. In terms of uh, increasing revenue, that's that's not uh, that's not what we're uh, focused on in terms of implementing. I mean, we don't get me wrong, we'd love to increase revenue. Let's 10x it. That'd be fantastic. Mr. Coleman and Mr. Owens would be very happy with that as well. Um, but our focus has been, hey, how do we leverage it to uh, uh, increase quality of work product, increase increase uh, uh, increase results as we measure them, and I think some ways clients see that is, sometimes it allows us to get better results quicker in terms of fewer responses to the patent office. So it's saving clients thousands of dollars when we do that. Now they don't. It's a little hard to track that specific number, but in terms of seeing the number of responses required per application go down, which it's seeing that metric. There's so much behind that metric that it's not a good it doesn't, like all metrics, they never tell the whole story. There's always more, so sometimes you got to get behind them, but you can. But I mean, that's some of the ways with our tools on the website. Some of that is, hey, we can give more value to people, value to clients. They can use those tools, before we charge them. So that's another way that creates more value for them. Not that summarizing a patent, not that they couldn't do that. Use a million other tools to do that, but it doesn't have to be specialized. But we think we add some value in terms of how we summarize it. We summarize it to focus on what's innovative and some things like that someone that not familiar with patent law and not familiar with prompt engineering, are probably not going to get the same result if they just ask Google to summarize it. So so providing some value there. So that's some of the ways. And as I mentioned at the onset, one of the things that we do, we help clients patent AI related inventions as well. And so just by demonstrating our knowledge of the tools and our experience, whether patenting or using it, helps give us an edge talking to clients that are looking for that expertise and are having a hard time find it. So for our specific situation, there's some advantages there as well. So hopefully I addressed your
Yes,
questions.
yes.
Definitely. And I feel like like you mentioned, it is 10xing. Is it 10xing the revenue, or is it 10xing the client's value? I feel like, different, I've been hearing a lot of professional services, not just lawyers, saying that billable hours is dead, because now they're thinking about, okay, now I don't need to, sort of the interest not aligned anymore. I don't need to spend that many hours to finish this task. So now I'm charging,
I challenge that. Now, not that there's not going to be some of that. Even in the problem with, so what's good about fixed fees generally is it's just a certainty. The client gets the certainty, and sometimes that's valuable to them, and clients are willing to pay more for that, willing to pay more for that certainty, so they can budget and do what they need to do. Unfortunately, human nature, sometimes with fixed fees, the people receiving the fixed fees are always looking for ways to do less. Now, now there's ethical constraints, but there is tension there, and so I know that many lawyers would disagree, but I still think there is value in hourly billing, but I also think, whether it's hourly or fixed fee, that the scope is going to change. And I had a slide that where I have the triangle, and so so if you're familiar with this project management triangle, so you've got scope on top, let's say, you've got cost on one vertex, and you've got time on the other, and let's say the middle is quality. So you've got scope, cost, time, and quality, and so the cost, scope, time, quality. I think in professional services, when you're using more AI, what's really changing, I think the cost is going to stay relatively the same, because it to some extent it has to, or you don't have or those businesses are going to go away. So I mean, there may be areas where some quasi legal website does everything for you, but for traditional services, cost is going to stay the same, and so time is going to stay the same too. But you're going to end up with higher quality, because the scope is going to grow, because AI can do more, and so that's the way I see it, at least for the near term. I'm shaking out, so I don't think you're going to see. I think if you see fixed fees, you're also going to see that more time. The scope is also going to change, which is also going to change the amount of time. So
I feel like
that's and all this is just overgeneralization, but that's what I see for the immediate future.
Yeah, I feel like there are, it's like the pendulum, the two extremes of for a law firm. Are we 10xing our revenue? Are we 10xing the client quality? I mean, from both extremes, like if we're 10xing the revenue, I guess extreme will be, for it will be a different kind of law for sure. But you know, a lot of individuals, you know, they are in a legal situation. They need to call up a lawyer to write a scary letter to somebody, and that's just extreme. That now essentially. It can be almost like industry for a single member attorney office to pump out those letters. So you know they can do like social media marketing. People can, and AI can generate it. They'll sign off. They'll do a quick skim and sign off the letter. Then they're, you know, I don't know, a couple $100 per letter, and they're pumping out the revenue. Versus what you're doing is to still use the hours, but leveraging different tools to increase the quality.
Yeah, no, and certainly there's going to be instances of what you of what you said, and so now it's a little harder on patents because everything is kind of bespoke. But I could use a tool to generate provisional patent applications without, or you could prepare trademark filings without. I mean, so you could minimize that, but if you're you know, a part of that time is nurturing the relationship, so you understand what the client really needs, because not everything is, you know, is a factory model, and so, but if it is an area law where you can do that production assembly with little attorney review, well then you're gonna be competing on cost, and so then the cost of that is gonna, you know, maybe the scope doesn't change so much, and AI is doing a lot of it, but the cost of that's going to be going down, and you see that sometimes. You know, you can have trademark mills online where maybe maybe an attorney can collect basic information and file a trademark application, you know, with minimal review, and of course they disclose all that. And sometimes people see a low price, but you know, sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't, because sometimes more than a minimal review was required, or sometimes a conversation could lead to, okay, well, trademark registration is not really your problem. What really is your problem is, you know, you're going to have a trademark infringement issue. So you know, so, you know, but that's so you're losing some of that traditional role of counselor that adds tremendous value in order to get a cheaper unbundled service that's very specific and limited. But you're gonna have both models, and certainly people could use the model you're saying and leverage AI and potentially make generate a lot of revenue.
Yeah, it's both ways, and just purely hypothetical. It's just coming up, but AI is definitely changing, and we really talked a lot about so many different aspects, both AI in general and within the law industry as well.
Yes. When you look ahead, let's say 3 to 5 years, what do you think the intersection of AI and law, specifically in your area of patent and innovation protection, where do you see, will you see a reshape in startup behavior, legal operations, or even regulatory regimes, you know?
You sort of already touched a little bit about end to end.
Exactly.
But if we open this conversation up, besides just the end-to-end system, well, that is a definite, you know, regulatory regime change, almost like. But how do you see, you know, the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and things are moving so rapidly, so it's but just as there's a program now at the patent office where you have to petition for it, but what it will do is you file your patent application and you make a petition for it, and it'll provide you AI generated patent search results. And so the theory is there that you know, you'll look at that prior art, the best prior art that their systems, that their AI systems could find, and maybe you'll narrow your claims or change the scope of your claims to distinguish, and so that ultimately will save you time and money in terms of getting to a patent faster and at less cost if there's less back and forth required. And so that's an example of a regulatory opportunity that is that's just real recent at the patent office. So I think you're gonna see more, whether more people experimenting, whether it's government agencies or law firms. Another area we didn't touch on that is certainly relevant to IP that is important too. I see a lot more of the information that I request from clients is coming in AI generated, right? So to draft a patent application, I need to know about the invention. Now, sometimes there's a physical model, conversations, but I always like to have a written disclosure as well. And what I'm seeing more often is that written disclosure is generated with ChatGPT, based on based on their conversations, and and sometimes that's not always helpful. And I think I've got a article on either Medium or I think I've got a Medium article on that. There's a link on the goodhue.com/more. But so I expect I'll be seeing more and more of that. And sometimes it probably makes the disclosure better and saves the inventor time, and sometimes it totally loses or obscures what is potentially the patentable aspect of it, because if something is truly new and non-obvious, ChatGPT may not understand it because it wasn't trained on it, and so sometimes when people use that, they use it in a wrong way, and it gives poor output. But I'm gonna see that see that more, but again, that goes back to my end-to-end cycle. If you had the inventors inputting directly at the patent office and asking questions and doing the prior art, as opposed to the inventor separately fragmenting using ChatGPT or whatever. And let's say I use my AI tools. Now the examiner uses their AI tools. I prepare a response using AI tools. The examiner responds, and you're losing a lot in the conversation, where you're losing a lot of stuff in the middle by that you could get to more quickly and more directly in a more integrative approach. And so I think there's a lot of, in the next 3 to 5 years, I think there's going to be a lot of work in terms of, okay, now the technology is there, we can do all these great things, but how do we really integrate things in a way that is not just this specific task oriented, which is how we're used to automating things, but when we in our processes are this task, and this task, but when you have these bigger processes, automated in a way, integrated in a way to minimize the human requirements in terms of input, minimize the human requirements in terms of review, and just take what you need. And I'm not sure how we're going to get there. I don't know who's going to get there first or best, but when that's all integrated, on your desktop, or your, if you still have desktops, but maybe your chat interface, you don't have operating systems, you just have a chat interface or whatever, even 3 to 5 years from now, that's the type of thing that I think you're gonna see, where people figure out how to really integrate things in more workable ways, and to make it easier to do the things that people get frustrated today because they can't do, even though somebody can do it, but somebody more knowledgeable can do it, but with more experience can do it, but so everybody can do those types of things.
Yes.
So I really think it's going to be more work more towards that. But did I?
Yeah, no, that is fascinating. That is fascinating how this is going to play out in the next 3 to 5 years, or even shorter, or even longer. But wow, we really covered a lot today,
Yes.
from the different models that AI can be implemented, different work streams and different flows, and how the flows can fundamentally change instead of just automating the current flow, and we learned a lot about you and your work as well. And I think one takeaway from all of this is that everybody should really go to goodhue.com/more.
Yes.
Only if you want more.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for sharing your insights, John. This has been incredibly valuable. I really appreciate your time and openness.
Well, thank you. Always great to talk to you with you both.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.